Okay, so let's just talk a little bit about prepping and survival. So basically, we all know the sort of what we need. This sort of basic triangle: food, water, warmth, and rest. That'll basically be our basic needs, essential for the next like 10 years if there's a World War III full nuclear war. And then basically all this other stuff here is a bonus. So I did a little bit of calculations of like how much food a person could store and how much it would cost for like, lasting 7 years. I used the 7 years basically versus like 10 years, and that's like some of these models are saying with like the growth seasons decreasing and all that. But basically, we can relate to this thing in the Bible where Joseph stored 7 years worth of food on 7 good years, and then after that, the 7 years of famine. So I just sort of picked that out of self-interest as a Christian. So, would you like to imagine eating shortbread for 7 years? Well, I picked shortbread because there's like survival food that you can buy, and that's like the most cheapest and all like most dense food I could find to make this calculation. So basically, natural preparedness will take years for large proportions of unprepared proportions of populations to survive. So let's give the world 7 years to prepare for a nuclear winter lasting 7 years on the level of Joseph in Egypt. And this was actually way worse than the drought in Egypt, of course, because we have the whole world have the problems, so there'll be no way to trade with other countries. And then we have the problems of cooling and cold temperatures and also radiation. And basically everybody out for themselves, tribal warfare and survival. So basically anything you can do to yourself will only really help in a limited nuclear war long term. And that's a caveat if there isn't political action. So this is what I basically discovered. I went on to Amazon and I found this thing here that's just 2 months survival food for one person, £145. Actually, but then again, if everybody was buying this food, the price would increase, astronomically. But let's just say that you wanted to prepare now, what you could do to survive 7 years. So the average adult male needs 2,500 calories per day, or about 900,000 calories per year. So this thing here, it weighs about 12 kilograms, 12 kilograms, and it contains 2 months worth of survival biscuits, and it fits in a box this size. So if you wanted to buy this for a year, it would only need to fit within a space of 38 times 23 times 120 centimeters. It's basically just over a meter long and about the height of an average suitcase. And that would keep you going for a year, no problem, pretty much. Now, of course, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nutritionist, but you'd have to obviously supplement that with something, because, although these biscuits give you a lot of what you need in terms of vitamins, that you probably definitely don't want to go long term on only these, but this is basically for the sake of this calculation. And only 78 kilograms, but it's going to cost you about almost £1,000. This is basically some of the properties. So like I think it's the biscuits you eat, I can't remember how many a day, but it's like, I think it's like 6 of these or 3 of these biscuits, and it's like 2,500 calories. It's quite a lot. Really dense, really heavy stuff. 5 year shelf life, which is not bad. I don't know how long it would last long term if you wanted to basically use them 10 years later. I'm not sure. They were waterproof and NATO approved. If you want to do it for the whole 7 years, basically it would fit into an area the size of 38 times 161 times 120 centimeters. So it would basically fit into basically a quarter of a small room, and that would be weigh 500, half a ton, and that would keep you for 7 years. But it's going to cost you £6,000, which I don't think is actually that much for a cost of that if you can afford it. But of course, I guess most people don't have a spare £6,000 lying around. In fact, myself included, and the vast majority of people would not be able to afford £12,000 worth for prepping. So this isn't really feasible. But it's just, if somebody has the money and they want to do it, this is one way you could go about it. So really, we need economies of scale and governments to start, manufacturing things like this in bulk if you want to prepare for it. So for a limited nuclear war, then anything that's like bushcraft related is going to help a lot. So right now you should really be thinking about, when you're outside, looking at insects, for example, that are edible. And most insects are edible, but go check online. Don't just go start eating insects because I think they're a good idea. But basically most of the calories that are free outside right now are in insects. And if there was a full-scale nuclear war, insects would basically be a luxury, because they might only be around for like 1 or 2 years, and then there's 0 insects. So the buffer that you do get if you're not killed in the nuclear blasts would basically be maybe 1 or 2 years worth of insects if you even know how to eat them. And then again, I'd say probably 95% of the Western world don't know about insects and how to eat them. So we'll probably see a large amount of refugees from like the West moving to like Africa and like other countries where there's a larger growing season if there's like a full scale nuclear war. So basically, what kind of bushcraft skills are useful to know? But I always like to say, what could you make with basically your bare hands? I know it's kind of extreme, but if I was in a situation where survival, I would go and look for like flint. If I didn't have a knife, I'd look for flint rock, and I would learn how to make like axes from that kind of stuff. Because like even if you have a survival knife, it might not last you like 7 or 8 years. You might not have the tools to make it, because basically infrastructure will be destroyed for basically any sort of tertiary, complicated industry. There's not going to be any power in the Western world. There's not going to be people to maintain the machines. It's just we could make videos and videos theorizing how this could be, and we might just do that as like intellectual exercise. But it's not really for the scope of this video. This is just a light touch of prepping at the end of the research that we've done. So, like I said, after nuclear strikes, you're going to basically only have those that you have on you or you can reach quickly. And most of our Western professions will be useless for years to come. Like stuff like, imagine like the technology for the internet and computers and all that stuff. And it would take the world, I don't know, hundreds of years to sort of regrow that knowledge again. If even if any happened to survive, it would probably be in Africa or countries like that. So, but hopefully we would get back to speed relatively quick to sort of restore some of our technology. Then again, there's probably research papers done about that, but it's beyond the scope of this video and my ability to theorize right now. So if we want to like reduce the cost and feasibility of this, also there would be a lot of chaos. So like if people had this stuff in storage, there'd be probably a lot of theft, and so it's just not really feasible for everyone to go out and buy this kind of stuff. We really need action from local government. So I had to think about this. So basically, right now we need to advocate to your local municipality to secure and store high caloric survival food enough for up to 2 to 3 years for everyone in your neighbourhood. Now I would actually probably say it's going to be between 1 year for a limited nuclear war. We probably need 1 year's worth, but then probably 7 years for full scale. If it's a worst case full scale, then it's going to be like, I guess, 10 years. But hopefully, even if there was a war between NATO and America or America and China, they would stop before they released 150 teragrams. So anyway, if the governments are actually procuring the food and manufacturing and making it into proper industry, then it would be more cost effective and lead to less private food robberies. But it's better if your municipality can manufacture this food themselves and rotate expiring food to be used immediately in starvation areas. So this is something that could be done to help the developing world. So we could have this sort of pool of survival food that we then rotate to countries to be used immediately once it's reaching their expiry date. So that, in a sense, it would give us the food for free, in a sense of like if we reduce the amount of aid we deliver after those expiring years, we have this food that we can just deliver to areas right now. So there's not really that much of a hit for it. And there could be a tax for it, I guess. We could vote to say, okay, we see as the world tensions are increasing, let's make it a little bit means Texas tax to try and protect ourselves from starvation, which is the biggest problem. And also, of course, store enough food for your own family for as long as you want. I'll leave that up to you, whatever that is. So in terms of food and personal stuff, well, if you want to be able to survive off the land, then I pretty much recommend learning what plants are in your immediate area. Learn how to can them, preserve them, store them. There's a lot of food that goes to waste just in general, and you could basically harvest that food right now. There's an app out there called Seek, which I use quite a lot to learn local plants. I guess right now though, if you're in more warmer countries, it's going to be easier, but still there's pretty much survival food in most countries, even in Scotland. Like the brambles you can eat, there's like different types of nettles, there's just different types of things that you can forage for. But like that said, it's easier to forage in summer and spring versus winter time. I don't know if any survivalists could actually live off the land on a Scottish winter. I just don't know if it's possible. Maybe it is, but that's not for this video to discuss.